Have you ever thought about how we actually protect the environment when we're way out in the middle of the ocean? Right, it's pretty easy to picture a fence around a national park, but out on the open water, protection takes on this completely different, almost invisible form. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into international maritime law, and specifically, how it relies on these massive, mathematically perfect, invisible fortresses drawn right in the sea to protect our vulnerable coastlines. It's this absolutely fascinating mix of geography, math, and environmental science.
Okay, so here's our game plan for how we're going to map out the ways the IMO shields the world's waters. We'll start with these invisible ocean borders, see how they control pollutants like NOx and SOx, map out the North American, European, and Caribbean shields, and finally, look at their broader environmental mission.
Let's jump right into Section 1, Invisible Ocean Borders, Mapping MARPOL Annex VI. So, when we talk about emission control areas, or ECAs, designated under MARPOL Annex VI, we aren't just talking about polite suggestions. These ECAs act as rigid, invisible walls. They literally force these massive international shipping vessels to drastically cut down their pollutants way before they even get close to land. Just imagine a kind of digital fence, hundreds of miles offshore, that triggers a mandatory switch in how a ship operates. Moving on to Section 2, Controlling NOx Emissions, specifically under Regulation 13. The crucial thing to understand here is that Regulation 13 draws very specific, mathematically perfect boundaries just to keep NOx, that's nitrogen oxides, strictly under control. Under this specific rule, the IMO designates exact zones where releasing these nitrogen oxides from ships into the atmosphere has to be heavily restricted. You can think of it as a highly targeted strike against one very specific chemical threat to our air quality. Which brings us to Section 3, targeting SOx and particulates, under Regulation 14. Now, what's really fascinating here is how this legislation creates a completely distinct, separate layer of protection for different chemicals. Regulation 14 is set up entirely apart from Regulation 13, and it's built specifically to target sulfur oxides, SOx, and particulate matter. This is just a brilliant example of a multi-layered approach to atmospheric defense. We aren't just tossing a generic blanket rule over the ocean. The protections are chemically specific. Okay, Section 4, the North American Shield, a massive geodesic fortress. Just think about how heavily fortified the North American coasts and the U.S. Caribbean really are. They are explicitly covered by both Regulation 13 for NOx and Regulation 14 for SOx and particulates. They basically act like a double-layered shield. Any ship approaching the Pacific or Atlantic coasts of the U.S. and Canada or sailing into the Gulf of Mexico is sailing straight into a highly regulated atmospheric zone. And to make this work, the meticulous precision required is just off the charts. We don't need to read every dry coordinate out loud, but just visualize how they're structured. We're talking about complex, geodesic lines enclosing the Atlantic coasts of the US, Canada, and France's Saint-Pierre and Miquelon. Every single minute and second of latitude and longitude is calculated to map out this exact digital perimeter over the rolling waves. 206. That is the staggering number of exact latitudinal and longitudinal points connecting just the Atlantic and Gulf coasts to form this massive North American fortress. I mean, think about that for a second. Maritime law doesn't just broadly say, hey, stay away from the coast. It meticulously plots out 206 individual points in the ocean, connecting them dot to dot to form an unbroken, invisible chain of environmental defense. And, this precision extends way out into the Pacific, too. To ground this highly technical data in some geography we all recognize, there's a complex web of 45 specific coordinates that completely encloses 8 beautiful Hawaiian islands: Hawaii, Maui, Oahu, Molokai, Niihau, Kauai, Lanai, and Kahului. It's literally an invisible geodesic ring protecting the entire archipelago from harmful ship emissions. Moving along to Section 5, European and Caribbean zones, layering the defenses. Under Regulation 14, again, that's our sulfur oxide and particulate shield, the IMO explicitly adds these massive swaths of European waters. This draws a vast protective zone right across the Baltic Sea proper, the Gulf of Bothnia, and the Gulf of Finland. It sweeps all the way down through the North Sea, pushing southwards of latitude 62 degrees north, covers the Skagerrak, and entirely engulfs the English Channel and its approaches. Now, the exactness here is what's truly fascinating.
The legislation is written to make absolutely sure there are no loopholes between these bodies of water. The North Sea and Baltic boundaries actually share precise latitudinal limits, like the Skagerrak boundary, which is pinned exactly east of the SCA at 57 degrees 44.8 minutes north. It effectively creates this seamless, interlocking grid of international atmospheric protection across northern Europe.
Meanwhile, shifting back over to the Americas, the U.S. Caribbean Sea area definitely isn't forgotten. That zone requires 55 uniquely plotted points just to lock in its protection from both NOx and SOx pollution. So whether we're talking about the chilly waters of the Baltic or the warm currents of the Caribbean, the mathematical approach remains equally rigorous. So beyond these thousands of precise, invisible atmospheric coordinates, we really have to ask ourselves, what else falls under the IMO's massive environmental umbrella? Because as it turns out, air pollution is really just one dimension of marine conservation. That brings us to Section 6, the broader environmental mission, beyond emission control areas. You see, these emission control areas are actually just one piece of a much larger global puzzle in the IMO's Marine Environment Initiative. Their mandate tackles physical marine pollution comprehensively. We're talking about working to prevent everything from catastrophic oil and chemical spills all the way down to the everyday systemic management of ship garbage and sewage, right alongside their larger climate action and clean air goals. And on top of that, they also manage invisible biological threats. The IMO deploys strict regulations for ballast water management and biofouling. And why do they do that? Well, it's to stop invasive aquatic species from basically hitching a ride on ship hulls or inside water tanks and destroying delicate foreign ecosystems. It's essentially biological border control. Add in their oversight of pollution preparedness, highly regulated anti-fouling systems, and a joint working group dedicated to safe ship recycling, and you really start to grasp the true global scale of their commitment to the marine environment. It's an entire web of regulations mapping the life cycle and operations of a vessel, literally from construction to recycling. Which brings us to a final, absolutely crucial thought for this explainer. We've seen the meticulous math, the hundreds of geodesic coordinates, and the vast geographical zones created to shield our shores. But with thousands of ever larger ships crossing these exact invisible coordinate boundaries every single day, it really leaves us wondering, as global shipping just continues to grow, how are these unseen regulatory borders going to need to evolve next? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into MARPOL Annex VI.